Yo, what's good? What's poppin'? I know I got shades on, but I haven't been getting sleep really. My whole sleep system is messed up because of like everything's going on, so I'm trying to hide all the bags. But they Louis though. Nah, let me stop. I was trying to be funny, but forget that. Also, shameless plug. This is the homies shades, High Life shades. You got people in description to like. Yeah, link in the description. You already know. I messed up, so what? It is what it is. But yeah, link in the description below, yo. Peep these. These joints is like low-key fire. I don't wear shades in the house. I mean, I do wear beanies in the house when I'm doing videos. That's because I don't have alopecia, but I'm dead going bald, so. Yo, what's good, you guys? I'm Muhammad Floyd, and I'm a skateboard photographer and filmmaker in New York City. And in this channel, I talk about skateboarding, filmmaking, and photography, gears, tips, all that smooth jazz, and yada, yada, yada. Yo, just in case if you're wondering, that's a 5-barrel deck in the back. Super sick. Got it from Terminal Skate Shop. And in this video, this is a review of the Panasonic GH5S and why I use it as a skateboard filmmaker. Before I get into the pros and cons of this camera, I'm gonna just say it right off the bat. This camera is good. This camera is fire, it's fuego. It is the best camera I've used, have owned. Out of all the cameras I've touched, this is the best camera for skateboard filmmaking. Off rip. The first pro of this camera, it's small form factor. It has a small form factor because it's a hybrid mirrorless camera, so it does both photo and video, but I only use it for video. Because it's a mirrorless camera, it has no mirror in it like a DSLR, so its form factor is much smaller, and also because it's size sensor. Its small sensor size also attributes to its form factor. Its sensor inside the camera is smaller than your Super 35 sensor cameras and your full frame cameras. Having a small sensor is also good because its lenses are also smaller since its sensor is smaller. So having a small body and a small lens in your backpack while you're filming and skating throughout the city is really good because you don't want a heavy backpack hurting your back. And speaking about lenses, there are a lot of third-party lens makers that make Micro Four Third lenses outside of Panasonic and the other big name brands. So there are a lot of cheap lenses out there. I bought a few lenses under $100, which is pretty sweet. And since skateboarding is all about fast action stuff, it's nice to slow things down with slow motion. And this camera is beast with it. 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second. Right off the bat, if you don't know what frames per second is, a video takes pictures and put them all together to make a video. And higher the frame rate, the slower your footage can be. So think about it, your iPhone is shooting 60 frames per second, which is regular slow motion. And then when you're shooting 120 frames per second, it's super slow motion. And in this camera, the slow motion just looks really, really good. Another sweet thing about having a mirrorless camera is that you can adapt so many different lenses to it. Since my first camera was a Canon camera, I have a bunch of Canon lenses. And I actually really like using those Canon lenses for video, so I wanted to adapt those lenses to my camera, which was super easy because it's a mirrorless camera. And the Micro Four Thirds lenses, there's a bunch of different adapters out there. And I have the cheapest kind for like 30 bucks or something. Another sweet thing about this camera has a flip out screen. As a skateboard filmer, I'm filming low angles, high angles, all different types of angles. So a flip out screen is super important. Having its own flip out screen saves on weight and battery. Now on the internet, you're gonna hear all types of things about Micro Four Thirds sensors not being good in low light as bigger sensor cameras. Which to a certain extent is true, but this camera is beast with low light for its sensor size. In low light, this camera is just as good as my Canon camera with a bigger sensor in it. One of my favorite things about this camera is customizability. I can customize so many different options on this camera. You can change button to almost anything on this camera. The quality in this camera is super sweet, yo. It's really nice. So I use it outside for skateboarding as a professional filmmaker as well. So I don't have a separate camera for skateboarding or professional filmmaking. I use them for both. Another pro of this camera is dual card slots. That means 2 SD card slots in the camera. I can record videos twice at the same time. That means I have a backup off rip. Now you never know what could happen. You could format a card by accident, delete files by accident, or freaking break a card, give someone a card, they mess it up. Anything could happen to your footage. Now having 2 card slots with both files on it, your butt is saved no matter what almost. As much as I hype this camera up and talk about it being the perfect camera for me, that's it. It's the perfect camera for me. There's no such thing as the perfect camera to do it all. So with that being said, there are some cons to this camera. Now, if you're really a budget filmmaker or even new into the game with no camera, and you're like looking up to upgrade or looking to get your first camera and budget is really, really crucial, this camera's kind of expensive. At brand new, around $1,600, it's more expensive than like a Panasonic G7 or a Canon T3i or T6i and all that kind of stuff. Now, I will say this, price ranges are always relative. What you're gonna get out of this camera for $1,600 is really good, like really good, and can compare to cameras up to $5,000 and $8,000. So when you're looking at spending $8,000 or $1,600, I'd rather spend 1,600 bands than 8 racks on a camera. Still, all in all, $1,600 is expensive by itself. But luckily there's a used market, and that's how I bought mine. I bought mine at $2,000, and at that I got a whole bunch of accessories that just let me hit the ground running with filming. I had to buy anything else right out the box. Now, this camera records at really, really high quality. Because of that, you need better SD cards. Pretty much all my SD cards for my Canon camera were too low quality for video in this camera. So I put a 128 gig card. The first day of filming out with the homies, I literally filled it at half the session when I was filming at high quality, trying to record a whole lot of slow motion. I filled it up like that, yo. And now I have 256 cards in there. And trust me, those are expensive. And those aren't even at the highest quality cards. Now, if I'm trying to film at the highest quality this camera can output, if I want to get 256 cards, I'm spending like $350, which is cheap compared to SD cards. I was spending like 30 bucks a card, 60 for 2 cards for my Canon camera. So yeah, that's my review of the Panasonic GH5S from a skateboard filmmaker point of view, and also why the camera is a beast. So with that being said, remember, go out with the homies and film stuff. Peace. Thanks for ruining my sound, cat. Mad annoying. Just for that, you gotta make a cameo. Yo! This is Luna, making a cameo since you want to be rude and mess up the sound, walking upstairs and stuff. Alright, go do your thing, yo. Can we stop clawing at me? Thank you.